Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches producing big time results. On behalf of myself, Coach Gage Rozier, and co-host Coach Preston Peterson, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's show. Before we get to today's episode, I'd like to recognize our amazing sponsors who allow us to bring this podcast to you for free. Our first sponsor is TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is the leading software for high schools and colleges by providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. Right now, if you sign up with code BIGTIME, you will receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuilder. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuilder. Thank you to Hewitt and staff at TeamBuilder for their continued support. They do an amazing job. Our second sponsor is Optimum Nutrition Athletics. Athletes train hard to play at the highest level, and all that hard work raises the bar on muscle recovery. Optimum Nutrition's athletics program has industry-leading products that can help. Protein is key to muscle recovery, and Gold Standard 100% Whey, the world's best-selling whey protein powder, provides 24 grams of protein that mixes easily just using a spoon and a glass. Gold Standard 100% Whey is made in Optimum Nutrition's state-of-the-art facilities in Aurora, Illinois, and is banned substance tested by Informed Choice. Through Optimum Nutrition's athletic program, you can also get Pro Gainer for big athletes looking to become even bigger, and ready-to-eat protein snacks including Protein Crisp bars, cake bites, wafers, and almonds. After dominating the sports nutrition industry for over 30 years, newly created Optimum Nutrition Athletics brings that same trust and quality that knows how to put convenient options for protein in the hands of athletes who desire to become bigger, stronger, and better at their sport. If you'd like more information and free samples, email Derek Walters, Director of Optimum Nutrition Athletics, whose email and contact information you can find in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much to our amazing sponsors for their continued support. Now, let's get to today's episode. Hey guys, welcome to Season 2 of the Big Time Strength Podcast. We are excited to get this thing rolling for another year of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Coach Preston and Peterson and I, we took a few weeks off. If you've noticed, we went 52 weeks straight with providing episodes of content for small school coaches doing amazing things, and took a little break off. So sorry about that, but we're back. Season 2, ready to roll, and today's episode, we are getting it kicked off with just a stellar coach. Coach Mike Caro, he's the head strength coach at Emory and Henry College, and he is fantastic. You'll see in this episode, he's one of these episodes where, I finish this and just think, man, that guy's really good. I got to set my game up because he's getting after it. And I learned so much from Coach Caro here, and I think you will as well. Many of you may know Coach as well as the chair of the NSCA's College Coaches Special Interest Group on Facebook. If you are not a part of that group, please join. He'll get you approved in there, and it's just all the best coaches just sharing information and learning from each other. So really excited about this episode today, guys. I want to get right to it. So enough from me. Let's kick off Season 2 with Coach Mike Caro. Enjoy. Coach Caro, really appreciate you coming on the Big Time Strength Podcast. Let's get rolling here and have you give us a little background on where you've been throughout strength conditioning so far and where you're at right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity. My journey has been a little different than normal, I would say. My background is actually, my undergrad degree is in computer science. By the time I was getting to be a senior working on my degree, I was doing some personal training and doing some work with athletes at my college, and didn't realize that strength and conditioning was actually a field you could get into. And unfortunately, my undergrad program, my undergrad school didn't have anything in exercise science. So finished my degree there, moved out to California. I was a pretty successful track and field athlete in college, so I moved out to California to try and qualify for USA Track and Field Nationals. And when I got out there, I had an invitation from Azusa Pacific University to train with their elite throws crew. I was a hammer thrower. Mike Barnett was the throws coach there, and he really gave me my first introduction to proper strength and conditioning. He ran a version of the tier system, and I really saw a lot of strength improvements out there because when I was in college, I barely had a weight room, let alone a program. So I did that, got really interested in it, actually got connected with the head athletic trainer out there at Azusa Pacific, and he let me sit in on one of the courses they had that was based off the NSCA Strength and Conditioning Essentials text. So I sat in on that class for a couple of months, read through the book a couple of times, ended up passing the passing the CSCS, and I thought, hey, I've made it. I am now a certified strength coach. I can go anywhere and work as a strength coach. And I had no clue. I had no idea that passing the CSCS was really just your foot in the door saying, hey, you can do this now. Good luck. So I worked with some high school teams out there as a sport coach and a strength coach. Got connected with Matt Durant at University of La Verne. He offered to let me come and volunteer and help out, which was really my first big break in strength and conditioning and really seeing how a strength and conditioning department is run. University of La Verne is a D3, and Matt Durant just runs a phenomenal program out there. From there, I went up to Portland, Oregon, and got connected with Andrew Pompey at Portland State University, working with the football program, which was another eye-opening experience, being able to work with a strength and conditioning program that was solely for football. Andrew was great. I had a great time up there, learned a lot in the continuing education sessions and with the hands-on stuff we did. While I was working on my graduate degree, I went from Portland State to University of Michigan and actually got connected with their Olympic sports strength and conditioning department with Jason Cole, Bo Sandoval, and Mike Favor, and had a great time at the University of Michigan, put in a lot of work, but it was great seeing how a big D1 program ran things. So once I finished there, I did a little stint at a private facility until a job came open at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky. So I took a job there. I was actually hired as a part-time track and field throws coach and part-time strength and conditioning coach. At the time, they didn't have a strength and conditioning department. They had 3 sport coaches, including myself, that were all CSCS certified. So when I got there, I kind of took things and ran with them. Nobody told me I couldn't. So I kind of brought the things together into a department, scheduled times for teams to go in the weight room, scheduled coaches with different teams, and tried to make things a little bit more coherent. And after 9 months in that role, Transylvania created their first head strength and conditioning coach position and asked me to take that, which I gladly did. And I was actually able to found the first strength and conditioning department they'd ever had there, which was a lot of work. It was actually one of the smallest weight rooms in the NCAA. We had 800 square foot racquetball court with 4 racks and 4 bars and a little over 400 athletes. And I was the only strength coach there. So it was a big time learning experience, but super invaluable to me. I didn't have the traditional upbringing in strength and conditioning where I was an undergrad in the field and then I did an intern position and then a GA position and then got my first assistant position. I literally went from intern to head strength coach. So I didn't have, I had a lot of contacts, but not necessarily a program that I was mentored under. So I had a unique experience where I got to actually develop a lot of the methods that I used, a lot of the systems I used, which I really think helped me to learn to be a little more self-sufficient, as well as a little more creative. One of the things I tell a lot of coaches at at different levels of NCAA, particularly the smaller schools, is creativity is key at Division III. You really have to learn how to be creative with your funds and your resources and your time, really. So after Transylvania University, I got a job at Emory and Henry College, where I am now in Southwest Virginia. Emory and Henry has a phenomenal facility. We've got a 5,000 square foot combined campus fitness center and varsity strength and conditioning facility. The coaching staff, the administrative staff, they're all really into strength and conditioning. They really recognize how important it is, and we're able to work really well on really doing some great things for our athletes.
Coach, it's some amazing background you got so far, and I want to go back to some couple things you said during your time at Transylvania. And it sounds like you took initiative and made the job the best you can possibly make it there, and they kind of created a position because of the work you've done. Is that accurate, or would they have created that position of a full-time head strength coach if you had not took the bull by the horns and just went for it and showed them the value that a strength coach can add?
I can't say for sure. I personally think that it definitely helped that I stepped up and kind of took charge of things. Like I said, for a couple of years, they had some strength and conditioning certified sport coaches there, but there was no organization. Those coaches pretty much worked with their teams. Maybe if they had some time, they'd work with another team here and there. So they had strength and conditioning certified coaches there. But the lack of organization, I think, was really what was missing. There was no standardized way of doing things. There was no department methodology, principles, anything to really grasp onto. And aside from disorganization within a strength and conditioning department, what that does is that doesn't send a unified message to your athletes. And it really helps when you can have a formed department where your athletes can see everyone's on the same page, the sport coaches are on the same page, and there are goals, there are things being worked on, there are methods. So I like to think that I helped contribute to that position being made. I think since I've left there, they've actually expanded the strength and conditioning facilities with the new coach. They've added another sport, and they're, I think, due in part to the strength and conditioning program there, they've become very competitive at several of their sports.
I think that's huge. I just really appreciate and really respect your approach on that, and coach. And you're at Emory Henry right now, and let's talk a little bit about just the culture, maybe what it was when you got there, what it is now, and like, what is the optimum culture of your program there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's actually quite a unique question for where I am here. So I took over this program from Josh Bullock, who's with USA Ski and Snowboard now. And I got to say, it was a program unlike any other I'd seen, especially the D3. Coming into it, he had laid the foundation of just an outstanding strength and conditioning department. He had a great internship program going. He had, values for his program, what his athletes can expect. He ran a tight ship, and he did a phenomenal job of setting things up. And leadership-wise and management-wise, he and I are pretty similar. So I was lucky enough that I was able to kind of step in and actually stand on his shoulders and hit the ground running and take what he had done and just keep working on it. The culture of our program here, the conference we're in, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, is very competitive. It's one of the most competitive Division III conferences in the nation. So our culture here is really based on hard work. One of the things that I established here were our values for strength and conditioning, something I try to get our athletes to abide by. And those values for us are attitude, effort, and focus. One of the things I really preach to our athletes is you have to have all three of those things really dialed in. You have to have the right attitude, both at training, at practice, and in competition. You have to give great effort. If you don't give effort, you're not improving. If you're not improving, you're not helping your team. And focus is a big one, I think, especially for Division III athletes. Division III is very academically driven, and our athletes tend to get very focused on the academic side of things. Some of them are able to focus in on the athletic side of things. But on the flip side of that coin, because there's so many extracurricular opportunities and so many academic opportunities in Division III, our athletes have so much to focus on. They tend to not be able to zero in on competition or on training when appropriate. So being able to help them with their focus is great too. And, one of the really unique things I discovered when I got here was our football program has this standard, and it's called, or this mantra, and it's called blue collar gold standard. And it really fits well with Emory and Henry, where we're located, and the type of athletes that we recruit here. Obviously blue collar ties into the effort value that I have. And when we encourage our athletes, you've got to work hard. You've got to, you got to put your nose down. You got to get things done. It's got to be on the field, on the court, in the weight room, in the classroom. It's got to be a blue collar effort. But at the same time, we want to hold ourselves very high. We want to have a gold standard for the way we do our work, and the way we're seen. So blue collar gold standard is just awesome. Of course, our colors are blue and gold, which ties in very well. But it really summarizes the way athletics run here at Emory and Henry. And it's a great thing to keep in mind for all of our staff and all of our students.
I got a couple questions off of that, and my first one would be, you step in there and you said you had a really good a foundation to step to. We can kind of just hit the ground running. What's your process for just figuring out what to keep, what to change, what to implement where, if you know what I'm talking about. Maybe walk through that process a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things I was told when I was an intern, one of the things I impress upon my interns in strength and conditioning is always come in and have wide eyes and observe first before you start making big changes. So one of the things I did was kind of took what Coach Bullock had been doing and kind of observed. I started, I think, the week before football season, so it was a pretty late hire, and I didn't have a lot of time to really institute a lot of my methods and whatnot. And like I said, Josh and I ran things pretty similar, so it wasn't that drastic of a difference. But for me, the big key was seeing, okay, what was he doing here that's unique to Emory and Henry? How can I incorporate those things that are working well, and what things aren't working well that need to be changed to suit my systems a little bit better? And again, just like an intern, you want to come in, or a new assistant coach, you want to come in, see how things are done, and then see how you can continue to build things or add. You don't necessarily want to come in and just make a whole bunch of changes off the bat. And from a head strength coach position, as someone running a department, if you come right in and you make just a 180-degree difference with all the changes you're doing, you're really going to throw the athletes for a loop. And that's not to say you have to run the same program, but the more changes you make up front, the less likely your athletes are to buy in, especially if the previous strength coach was there for any good amount of time, because they're used to doing something a certain way.
Right.
And you obviously want to run your own program. You want them to know that it's the way you're doing things now. But being able to take a little bit of what's been done before and either develop that a little bit differently over time, or being able to incorporate that into your training really helps with athlete buy-in. And then as your athletes get bought into your system, you can continue to develop things more in the way you want them to go.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I'm really, really interested in that. Those transitions between jobs is interesting to me, just how different people handle it. So, Coach, and the next thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the biggest changes for me at Transylvania University, I was just in charge of strength and conditioning, but here at Emory and Henry, I'm actually the fitness center director too, because we have a combined campus fitness center and a varsity strength and conditioning facility. So where I had 0 people that I managed more or less at Transylvania University, I have a staff of almost 30 at Emory and Henry, and that's 24 work study students who supervise the weight room, and a strength and conditioning staff of up to 7 or 8 student interns. So I had to learn really quickly how to go from managing nobody to managing an entire staff of all different responsibilities, and as far as the internship goes, all different experience levels. But honestly, one of the things that was easiest for me is I took those same values of attitude, effort, and focus, and I applied them straight to our internship staff, and told them, most of our interns and most of our work studies really are athletes, so they understand why those things are important and they're familiar with them. But take those values and impress them upon the internship staff and say, hey, when you come in, you've got to have a great attitude. You've got to have the right attitude working with your athletes. Sometimes you got to bring the energy so that they'll, buy into the energy. You got to put effort into your training. You can't just sit back and count sets and reps. And you got to be focused on what you do to help reduce the likelihood of injury during training session, to really zero in on what your athletes need. So for me, being able to apply those same values across the board between athletes and staff has been really helpful. And then, with my staff, another big thing that we focus on, our number one standard is always professionalism, which I think is really important, not just as an employee of a college, but in strength and conditioning especially. I think being professional is one of the things that's really going to impress a lot upon people outside of our realm. We see a lot of videos of strength and conditioning staff running around and throwing their arms up and hollering and whatever on social media, which, there are times when that's called for and there are times when it's not called for. But if we can put forth a vision of ourselves being high-level professionals, we're going to get a lot more respect from people both inside and outside of the field. So that is to say, one of the things that I really try and impress upon my strength and conditioning staff and student work studies here is to always be professional, because that's how we always want to be seen.
No, I'm 100% on board with you with that. There's no doubt that's got to be a underlying focus for us going forward. And sticking on that same path of staff or topic of staff, that's crazy. I didn't realize you had 30 staff to take care of there and to manage. Maybe expand a little bit on how you do manage them, how you develop them, and maybe how you evaluate your staff.
I think, honestly, one of the best ways that I manage my staff is through really paying attention to hiring and hiring the right people. If you hire people that are bought in to the culture of your department and your program, it's going to be a lot easier to manage them because you're seeing things eye to eye. So as far as we actually are hiring a full-time assistant here for strength and conditioning. So, hiring for me, there's a couple different levels of it. With my assistant, I want to get somebody that's a little bit moldable. I want to see somebody that is at least somewhat familiar with the way we do things. But the big thing is going to be the cultural fit. And several coaches have said the same thing in interviews past. You can bring on somebody that knows everything in the world, but if they're not a cultural fit, they're not going to last long because you're going to butt heads. If you bring on somebody that you can develop and educate to the way you do things, that at least has a baseline understanding, but they're congruent with you on the same culture, they have the same values, your program is going to benefit a lot more because you've got somebody you're seeing eye to eye with that you can really build something with. As far as my internship, strength and conditioning internship staff goes, we run a 3-year internship program here. So we start off with academic interns, students who are fulfilling class credit. From there, they can become student coaches where they help with training sessions with the teams. And then if they want to continue, and quite a few of my interns do, they can become USAW certified, which doesn't require a bachelor's degree. And then they can, under my supervision, they can actually help run one of our club teams and get a year of strength and conditioning, collegiate strength and conditioning experience, coaching experience. Which I think is invaluable because if you're looking at a GA program or an assistant program and you're looking at two people that are certified and educated equally, but one of them already has a year of experience, that's a leg up. That's huge. Yeah. Plus, it gives help a little bit more help because I've got somebody to manage another team, take that on my plate. And they've already spent at least a year, if not 2, learning our template system, our culture, the way we run training. So really, it's great having that extra student assistant or 2. Now, as far as my weight room staff goes, my student work studies, I kind of joke that you can't get a job working in the weight room unless someone vouches for you, but that's really kind of how it works here. I have a great staff. I'm very thorough when I hire them. I don't necessarily do an interview process, but whenever I have somebody that says they'd like to work here, the first thing I do is I tell them, you have to have somebody that's currently on my staff vouch for you and be your reference and tell me they will do a good job. And when that person vouches, I tell them, listen, if this new hire, if they screw up and they get fired, I'm coming back to you and we're going to talk about why you vouched for them and why things didn't work out. So, one of the things I tell my staff is this is one of the most important jobs on campus. All my staff has to be CPR certified, and it's I tell them it's not if an accident happens in the weight room, it's when an accident happens. So people's lives could literally be in your hands, and you're not going to face the same thing if you're working in the administration office and you're filing paperwork. So I really pride myself on trying to bring in students that are very responsible, very accountable. As far as development goes for the strength and conditioning staff, I try to get all of my strength and conditioning students and assistant coaches to at least one conference or clinic, usually the Virginia State Clinic or the Tennessee State Clinic or the Kentucky State Clinic, something that's a little close. If it's close enough, we'll go to national conference, NSCA coaches conference preferably, but try to get them that not just that continuing education experience, but also get them the networking experience. I really think it's an invaluable experience for them to go and meet other coaches, get outside of our bubble here at Emory and Henry. So one of the things I really like to do with them is take them to those bigger conferences if possible and introduce them to people and get them to work on their networking skills, their elevator pitch, their greeting, their professionalism. I think that makes a big impact going forward in their career. Evaluations happen for strength and conditioning staff each semester. So we have a performance review that I'll do with them one-on-one. And I rate them on 8 personal qualities related to coaching ability and then 6 professional abilities. And then there's one section at the end where we have an open comment review, and I'll kind of just explain how they fit into our program, how they've done this semester, my first impressions of them when they first came on, my future expectations if they're going to either continue in this field or come back as an intern for the next semester or the next year, and what I think they need to work on to continue to develop as a coach and make themselves better. And I think for me, the performance review is really great because not only the interns getting something out of it and getting some guidance and some mentorship, but I always make sure I ask for their feedback about their experience. What did they think about being an intern, as well as their suggestions on how the program could be improved. I think that you get that kind of feedback on from sport coaches saying, "Hey, I read about the strength and conditioning program that does this thing. How do you address that, or how can we work this in?" But getting that from student interns, that feedback, they have a different viewpoint. And a lot of my interns are athletes, so they've been through the program. And it really gives me a unique input on how my athletes are seeing the program and how athletes who are coaching other athletes are seeing the program.
Coach, that's one of my favorite questions to ask because, to be honest, I need to do a better job in this area. And, man, you are super thorough with that. And that is really impressive on how you're impacting the field there with your staff and developing young coaches. And I love the idea about having to have a current staff member vouch for a new upcoming staff member. And I'm sure that it just improves the accountability within your staff right out of the gate.
It's great. And, my turnover for working with students, my turnover is actually really low. Excuse me. From semester to semester, I usually only have to replace graduating seniors. So, there might be 2 openings per semester, maybe 3 for new employees. For weight room supervisors, work studies, that is. And, I start the semester off with a meeting, everybody, all my interns who also help to supervise the weight room, and all my student work study supervisors. We'll have a meeting where we'll come in, we'll clean the entire weight room, get it ready for the semester, or at the end of the semester, we'll clean it up. And we talk about, we recap the semester. We talk about, people that did an outstanding job, things that returners are going to need to work on for the next semester. And really, I haven't had that many issues with my staff. They're very responsible. We talk ahead of time. I have a whole policies and procedures manual that they all have to read through before the semester starts. That literally lists how everything is run and how, from how they answer the telephone to how they work with conference groups that might be using the fitness center for a day to how they handle, emergency situations. So I get them up to speed on all that. We review it for the returners, the new kids, the new work studies learn it, and I actually quiz them, the new employees on it, so I know that they were paying attention. And again, a lot of this comes from the former coach, strength and conditioning coach, who did the same job. I just took what he had and ran it and made it my own. But really, I don't have a lot of problems because, and the same could be said for hiring, strength and conditioning staff. If you do your due diligence up front and you hire the right people, it makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%, Coach. That's very good stuff. Very good stuff. Definitely something that the rest of us can shoot for and strive for. That's great, Coach. Let's talk about maybe some of your toughest hurdles you've had to overcome, either there where you're at currently or previous in your strength conditioning career.
I think for me, working at the D3 level, and every D3 strength coach will say this, the biggest hurdle is getting athletes to buy in and getting athletes to be committed to the training. At Division III, a majority of training that our athletes do is optional. If they're not in season, they per NCAA rules, they can't be punished or rewarded for showing up or not showing up to training. So a big hurdle at the Division III level is just getting athletes to buy in, and you really have to work on developing relationships with the coaching staff and with the student athletes. And it's pretty obvious if you develop a good relationship with the student athletes and let them know what you're doing benefits them, they're more likely to volunteer, finger quotes, to come in and do it. But if you can develop a good relationship with the sport coaching staff, they're more likely to push their athletes to do it and encourage them to do it, which definitely helps with buy-in. And I think, having started a program at a Division III school and being one of the first strength coaches, not the first, but one of the first strength coaches at Emory and Henry, a big thing is just educating the student, staff, and administration on exactly what strength and conditioning is. And for the most part, I think strength and conditioning coaches are tasked with this no matter what school or what division or even if they're in the private sector. We continuously have to not just educate ourselves, but educate the people we work with on this is what we actually do and this is how I specifically do it. So that can be kind of an uphill battle. You don't really have to be educated by a sport coach on how their sport is played, maybe the intricacies of how they coach their sport. But, for by and large, people know how sports are played more so than they understand what strength and conditioning is or how it's done. And, with today's culture of athlete, they want things so quickly. They don't understand that, you're not going to see overnight changes. It's an investment. So it can be a real challenge, those two things combined, getting Division III athletes to, number one, show up and do the training, but number two, to put in the work for a long enough period of time, they'll actually see significant benefits from it.
So we're Division II here at William Jewell, but academically, you talked about academics a little earlier. I'm gonna go back to that real quick. Academically, we're a very D3 model type school. We're very high academic as well. What challenges do you have on getting athletes kind of back to that focus side? Because it was a big thing when I first started here at William Jewell. Their academic load is huge. And that's one of my toughest challenges is get them to focus and to be able to put their studies on the back burner for an hour and really focus on the training. Do you have that issue? And if you do, do you have any approaches or anything to combat that issue?
Yeah, you see that issue more often than not, actually. And it's hard because you're kind of interrupting their academic day to do something athletic.
Right.
So it's hard for athletes to run from class to the weight room and flip their mindset to the athletic side. And, a lot of our D3 athletes are not quite good at flipping that competitive switch all the time. And they're pulled in so many directions that even when they're training, it's hard for them to shut their mind off and just focus on the task at hand. And one of the things that I really like to impress upon my athletes, and I will repeat this with them constantly, is I say it a couple different ways. One of the ways is I'll ask them, where are you? And really for some athletes for some people, that can take them out of their current frame of thinking. Like, I just came from the classroom 5 minutes ago and now, I'm in the weight room. Oh, wait, I'm in the weight room. What am I here for? If you just, where are you? You're right here. You're right now. This is what matters. And I think that's a great question. It's pretty philosophical, in my opinion, if you can get your athletes to actually realize what you're asking them, not just what's your location, but what's your frame of mind? Where are you in your mind right now? Are you ready to work? Are you prepared to do the training that's coming up? Or do you need a minute to actually get your focus in the right spot? So that's one thing that I like to ask my athletes is, where are you? Frame of mind, location. Are you ready for this? And another thing I tell them when we have our beginning of year meeting, I meet with all the teams and I tell them, listen, when you're in the weight room, that is your job. There's nothing else that matters when you're in the weight room at that time. You're here for one thing. So set aside all that other stuff. You can't do anything for your academics. You can't do anything for your social life while you're in here. You're here to get better. And if you're not focused on getting better, you're not doing your job. And if you don't do your job, in the real world, you get fired. And here, there are going to be consequences as well. So come walk through the doors, flip that switch, know where you are, be ready to do your job.
Yeah, I love it. The where are you question, simple. I can start using that tomorrow. That's perfect. Simple things probably work better than anything else. So that's huge. I really appreciate you sharing that, Coach.
Yeah, and especially you bring up a great point, especially when you're working with highly academic individuals. If you make something too complicated, they're going to overthink it. And our athletes do that a lot. They overthink everything. So one of the things, really hitting on your question of the academic focus, one of the things I found being at academic institutions in these D3 colleges is, number one, if you can keep your coaching cues and your reminders and everything simple, they can digest it easier and quicker. But number two, you also probably have to explain things up front a little bit more. Whereas with some programs, you can just say, hey, we're going to get in the weight room. We're starting with hang cleans. Then we're going to do this and we're going to go. And they can jump right in and do it. Sometimes with your more academically driven student athletes, you'll have to say, okay, here's our focus for today. We're really focusing on these qualities of athleticism. And to do that, we're going to do these lifts and we're going to do it in this manner. And I've actually found that will help to increase athlete buy-in a little bit with your more academic student athletes, is explain things just a little bit at the beginning, and they're more likely to focus in on doing it because they have a comprehension of it right up front.
Oh, I think that's huge. I think that's a great point. And the whole overthinking thing is really a factor. There's no doubt. I mean, that literally happened to me yesterday. I gave them a simple drill. It had like one rule, and I got 14 questions back about other stuff that they can do with it. I was like, nope, just do what I said, please. Just I appreciate it. I appreciate their thought and their critical thinking with it. But just at some point, just go be an athlete and do what you're supposed to do. So,
absolutely.
No, that's great. That's great. All right, Coach. Let's switch the focus up a little bit here. Let's talk some programming. What are maybe some of your favorite programming methods you really like that you're using there? You've had success with.
So while I was at Transylvania, I actually got to researching different programming methodologies. I'd learned a lot about programming at my internship stops and just had some great experiences. I tell people that I learned just as much as an intern as I did in my master's program, but it was two different sides of the coin. I learned the academic stuff in my master's program, but you really got to get that practical hands-on education through your volunteer internship GA positions. And so one of the things I stumbled across, actually, I had read Joe Ken's tier system book. And like I said, my throws coach, when I was training in California, used that as a foundation for his strength and conditioning program. So I'd become familiar with it. I read through it. And in my research, I came across a website by Zach Brulette. And he was an intern for Joe Ken, I believe at Louisville, and he took the tier system and he made his own version of it, and he called it the brick method. So I saw this and I saw the way he set things up, and it really resonated with me. So I actually run a version of the brick method, which is a version of the tier system, which I think, I think a lot of people, anybody that says I run the tier system, they run their own version of it.
Right.
But programming method really works well for the Division III athlete. We're obviously not getting thoroughbreds all the time. I've got athletes, and I'm located in Southwest Virginia. So we get some athletes that come from schools that barely have a weight room, might have a dirt track, don't have a lot of experience with strength and conditioning whatsoever. I get athletes that have never even been in a weight room before. And then I get some athletes that were, looked at by Division I schools and have worked with a private strength coach or had a strength coach at their school. So I've got to be able to address all of that. One of the things I really like about the brick method template is it addresses all of the strength and conditioning training qualities that I'm looking for our Division III athletes. So I run a 3-day week program. Every day is, total body emphasis or full body emphasis, upper body, lower body on the next day, total body another day. But every day we're going to do upper body pushes, upper body pulls, some type of squat, some type of posterior chain movement, something explosive or total body. We're also going to do single leg, multi-directional work. So we hit on a little bit of everything. And with that 3-day week total body setup, you actually get more volume per week than a traditional 4-day-a-week bro split of doing upper, lower, day off, upper, lower. If you're getting that higher volume, not only are your athletes getting greater frequency with the movement to enhance their strength or the ability that you're training, with Division III athletes and less experienced athletes, you're actually getting better, or you're making quicker progress on movement mastery. If they're doing 33% more squatting or benching or pull-ups or, rear foot elevated split squats, they're getting more experience with that movement than someone doing a 4-day-a-week split, which I've found works really well for athletes. We've had really, really good positive progress with this programming strategy.
You think if coaches just search the brick method and tier system or something in Google, it would probably pop up?
Oh yeah, brick method. Zach Brulette, he wrote it while he was coaching at Ohio, University of Ohio. It's just a blog that he had, and I've talked to him a couple times. And the thing I really like about it is he ran a little bit different style than I did, and I actually presented on this at the Kentucky State NSCA clinic not too long ago. One of the things I like about it is it's adaptable. So I'll run different training methods. So we'll do triphasic, we'll do some French contrast, post-activation potentiation, we'll use some juggernaut method. You can utilize those things within the brick method or even within the tier system. But on top of that, I'm also working, I run pretty much a linear programming method, but for our more advanced athletes, which now I'm going into my third year here at Emory and Henry, I'm starting to get some of those athletes that are hitting some pretty good relative strength ratios and really mastering the movements. So I'm going to take that brick method and make an undulating version of it. So I'm getting athletes that are doing it more of an undulating, nonlinear program. We also do APRE for some of our athletes. It fits right into the program as well. So I think that with the basic tier system and then with the brick method, you can run linear, you can run undulating, and you can easily do conjugate as well within the same system. So it really makes it adaptable and versatile, and no matter what type of system you're using, you can utilize that type of programming strategy.
For us here, we've done like you said, a version of tier that works kind of for our setup here, and I think a thing that I've always overlooked that you made a great point there is getting the movement mastery, especially at the low training age athletes that you're doing some type of squat pattern or whatever it might be, 3 days a week compared to the normal 4-day split, and I think that kind of goes, kind of go under the radar a little bit. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, it's one of the things when you're looking at the lifelong training of an athlete or even a quadrennial plan is, you're never going to get to those upper tiers or upper echelons of strength and power if your athlete's not moving well. So the more experience you can give them doing those movements, the quicker they'll get to mastering those movements, which will allow them to experience greater strength and power development later on.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely, Coach. All right, last big question here for you. What is your vision for your program there, over the next 3, 4, or 5 years?
We want to be the best, hands down. We want to be the best at everything. One of the things that I do, every year when I do my performance review with my supervisor, I actually create an annual review to give to my supervisor. Because again, my supervisor, she's a former basketball coach. She was a basketball athlete. She did strength and conditioning, but she's never been a strength and conditioning coach. So one of the things I think really helps out is I give her an annual review of my own department, talking about number of athletes we worked with, our coach to athlete ratio, the interns we had, a short highlight reel of the achievements we had across the board for all teams, budget concerns, and then 2-year, 5-year, 10-year goals for the program. So for me, I'm always trying to keep in mind where am I trying to progress to? How are these changes that I'm making in the program getting me towards my goals for the next couple of years? Specifically here at Emory and Henry, we just added an exercise science program, 4-year undergrad program, which is huge. And it's allowing us to do more with the strength and conditioning department, kind of partner with them, not only get more interns in, but, get some different testing equipment and some different experience. So that's really helping us to grow. For me, my overarching goal, one thing I want to see is I really want to see Emory and Henry become one of the top Division III strength and conditioning programs in the nation. We've got a good facility. We've got lots of backing from the staff and from the students. And I really think there's a great potential for this small college to have a phenomenal strength and conditioning program to pump out really qualified undergraduates into the field every year. We have strength and conditioning interns that have gone to Minnesota. We got one that's going to be starting his second year at University of Kentucky soon. So they're all over. And, I think that speaks volumes about your strength and conditioning department if you're putting out these highly qualified graduates going into other programs where they can step right in and say, I have some experience with this, or we covered this in the professional development meetings we did in my undergraduate. So this isn't foreign. I can do this, right off the bat, just step in and do it. For me, I want to see everyone get better. I want to see our athletes get better. I want to see our coaches, I want to see them receiving athletes that have increased ability so they can take those athletic abilities that strength and conditioning has improved and create better skill for the sport and for their position. I'd love to see the department grow, get another assistant, eventually get some better facilities. And here in Southwest Virginia, where we're located, there aren't very many colleges that have strength and conditioning programs. There are hardly any high schools that have any coaches that are strength and conditioning certified. So one of the things we're really trying to work on with our internship program is just like athletic training students might do clinical rotations. We're partnering with the exercise science department and trying to take some of those USAW certified interns and putting them at local high schools to be the strength and conditioning coach for a semester. Everything would be run off the template system we use here, but it'd be appropriate for the high school level. And that gives those interns that are certified even more experience running a strength and conditioning program. So we've got a lot of plans for growth, and honestly, a lot of it revolves around our undergraduate strength and conditioning interns and giving them opportunities to build their career and get great experience, unlike anywhere else in the country, I think.
All those are big time things, Coach, and I don't think there's any doubt. Within 3, 4, or 5 years, or tomorrow, you guys are going to be recognized as one of the top programs in the country just by all the stuff you're talking about here. So keep doing your thing. So. That's huge. Really, really impressed. All right, Coach, let's wrap this thing up. I got 4 little quick questions for you. What is your favorite office snack?
You know what? I'm not a huge snacker.
Props to you.
And this is going to sound really dull, but I always try to keep some kind of fruit to snack on, bananas, apples, grapes, something like that. Protein bars maybe, but usually whatever's in my fridge is just something quick and healthy.
Yep, that's fair. All right, what's the favorite coaching advice, or doesn't have to be coaching, favorite advice you've ever received, or best advice?
I don't remember who told this to me, but a long time ago, somebody told me, always be an asset, not a liability. So I try to keep that in mind. In my role here at Emory and Henry, I'm always trying to help all of our teams with anything they might need. Right now, I'm serving as the interim throws coach for our new track and field team. They couldn't fill that position. I've got 20 some odd years of throws coach experience, so I give them a couple hours of my week to work with their throwers. And the last thing you want to do, and I always try to impress this upon my interns through our professional development, is always try to be an additional asset. So if you were hired as a strength coach, try and do something a little bit more beyond just strength and conditioning for your employer, and never, ever be a liability, someone that takes away. You always want to benefit and give and make things better. Never be the person sitting in their office, being negative, trying to take away from teams or from athletes or from other coaches.
In our profession too, unfortunately, with all the turnover, that makes it hard to get rid of you too, right?
Yeah,
When
that's
you go
true.
out, yeah.
Well, that's a great point. The more you can do for the school, the more of an asset you are. The more job security you have. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Coach, you got 15 minutes to train for yourself. What are you doing?
Well, I think for me, I'm going to do as much with a barbell as possible. Going to hit some complexes, probably throw in some kind of clean complex. Squatting is my thing. I love to squat, so I'll probably do some squatting after that. And definitely throw in some pressing and some posterior chain, all my favorite things. And, if I get some time at the end, do something for a little bit of energy system development, get myself a little bit more sweaty and out of breath. So I really feel like I got something accomplished.
There you go. That's perfect. All right, last one. Who's a small school coach that you know about that's just killing it that you want to give a shout out to?
You know what? I give a shout out to every small school coach that's out there. We all have uphill battles. We all have a lot of things that we're dealing with, unique to our own environment and our own situation. So anybody that's at a small D2, a small D1, a small D3, a small high school, keep fighting the fight. Keep doing what you're doing. Reach out. If there's any way I can help you, let me know. As the chairperson of the NSCA's College Coaches Special Interest Group, we've got a lot of great discussions on there. One of the main things there is to help everybody get better in the profession and push the field forward. Specifically, I'd have to say Matt Nine, who is Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year. He's at Salisbury University. He's actually one of my mentors. He's helped me out a ton. He's got a program at Salisbury that's unlike anything else, and that guy is just on top of it. And then Jeremy Carlson, actually at Center College in Kentucky, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's the first full-time head strength and conditioning coach they've ever had there. That guy has undoubtedly shown great benefits that strength and conditioning can have for their school. They're already looking to hire him an assistant, and he's really built something up there really fast that I think he should be really proud of. He's killing it.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach, for giving those guys a shout out. And like you mentioned there, we haven't got a chance to talk about it much, but really appreciate your work on the NSCA special interest group. And if our listeners aren't involved in that, join that group. I don't know if it's a public group. Maybe, Coach, you give a little background on it.
Yeah, so the special interest groups are just member volunteer groups that the NSCA has. Anybody can join any special interest group, and most of them have social media presence. The College Coaches Special Interest Group that I'm the chair of is actually the largest special interest group in the NSCA. The biggest things we try to do there is we're trying to disseminate information. So we're trying to bridge the gap between researchers and practical applicators or our sport coaches. But at the same time, we're trying to keep an eye on the field itself, on where the profession is going, and to advocate for and help our strength and conditioning coaches at the collegiate level to improve their situation, improve the field as a whole, and push for, better quality of life and whatever we can get for our coaches that'll make the field better. So we're on Facebook. It's just NSCA College Coaches SIG, SIG. It's an open group. Just got to apply, answer the questions, and I can approve you to be in. And, for me personally, I was just thinking about this today. The SIG has been beneficial for me because I'm a very discussion-based learner. I like being able to look at all different aspects of things. And again, it's one of the reasons I love coming on these podcasts. I really appreciate being on yours because, I've already got, a notes that I've taken just from the discussion we've had here. But one of the biggest things about the Facebook page is that we discuss different topics, different things related to the profession, being in the field, training methodologies, working with different types of athletes, things that go on nationwide and worldwide. And I think it really helps a lot of our strength and conditioning coaches, both the established ones and the up and coming ones, to not only learn a lot, but to network and build. We're really building a community of collegiate strength and conditioning coaches, which is something you can't get hardly anywhere else.
Yeah, there's no doubt the discussions that happen on there are awesome, and just the shared resources, just a great resource. If you're not on there, get on there, and I'll put Coach's contact info on the show notes as well. So if anybody wants to reach out to him, please do. He's obviously killing it. And Coach, really appreciate you coming on. This was a great conversation. I know a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. I got 3 pages of notes myself. So have a great rest of the summer. Keep killing it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate being a part of this. These, stuff like this, podcasts like this that you do really help to put out great information and help to educate and kind of connect our world of strength and conditioning. So they're very invaluable. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach.